Hello, I'm OT Speaks, also known as O Speaks. If you're new here, please like, subscribe, share. So I wanted to cover something. Actually, this is going to be two things. But the first thing I wanted to cover was the DOGE payments. I'm sure people have heard about. It's been going around the last few days. Trump talked about giving 20% of DOGE findings back to the American people. How that happens hasn't been discussed. But I've seen people say things that just aren't true. So what I like to do here is provide information. I have my opinions, but I like to provide fair, neutral information so you guys can come to your own conclusions, or at least be aware when somebody's saying something that's either not all the way true or biased. I always tell people that I lean to the right, but I do try to provide you with neutral information. And like I said, I give my opinions all the time. But on this topic, I believe the left is trying to set us up for something that may not happen anytime soon so that we can be mad at Trump. It's a conspiracy. I get it. What's going on, Phoenix Rising? Evo, Miss Highly Favored. So we're talking about the $5,000 refund checks from DOGE. I've seen it everywhere. And I'm like, okay, let me get to the bottom of this, because we're not getting all the information that we need to come to a logical conclusion. So I found a guy, young guy, millionaire, I think in his late 20s. He's a real estate guy out of California, and he's got a YouTube channel, and he's neutral on this topic. So I wanted to play him talking about this, these DOGE payments that everyone's talking about, this new stimmy. Anyway, I don't want to give my opinion yet. So what I want to do is play this for you guys so you have a better idea of what's being talked about and what's the likelihood of this happening. Let's go here. Oh yeah. Share. I think a lot of people need to hear about this and understand what it really is versus what they're saying it is, because I don't know. I don't know who's spreading this and why they're spreading it, other than to get people, excited. And it's like I said, it feels like a setup for failure, and I just not fully sold on it. So let me find Graham Stephan, and we can talk about this. Breaking Trump confirms. Here we go. All right. This is Graham Stephan. Let's do this. And get rid of all that extra. Now let's listen to him.
All right, so in terms of where to begin, let's talk about...
Nope, that's not going to work. Let me fix that. Sorry. You guys wouldn't have been able to hear that because it was coming through the speaker. Now you should be able to hear it better. Let's try it again.
DOGE, except not the point. The Department of Government Efficiency. Now, even though this isn't an official government agency, they are allowed to operate through an executive order, acting almost like an advisory to help the government identify inefficiencies and what they see as wasteful spending. So far, this has included a $6.5 billion cut from U.S. aid, $500 million from the Department of Education, $230 million from the Social Security Administration, $190 million from the General Services Administration, $170 million from the Agriculture Department, $152 million from the Department of Health and Human Services, $130 million from the Transportation Department, and $119 million from the Commerce Department. It's also estimated that 6,700 IRS workers will be terminated who are not deemed critical to filing season, a push to return government workers to the office, and a federal buyout for those who wish to voluntarily resign. But what's even more shocking is that after seeing all of this, one user on X suggested that a portion of these funds be returned to taxpayers in the form of a dividend. Elon responded, Trump agreed, and here we are. Crazy, right? So how much of this could go back to you? Well, first of all, I see this mistake.
So even right there, that just shows how in touch and in tune this administration is and how they're paying attention. Somebody on X said, hey, you know what they should do with this money? Elon said, you know what, I agree. Brought it to Trump. Trump said, you know what, I agree. And just like that, we get policy. And this is the same kind of thing that you saw Trump do during his campaign with the no tax on tips, the no tax on overtime. No tax on tips, I think he was at a restaurant. And then speaking with a waitress, just came up with it. Now, historically, it's been thrown out there, but he's actually utilizing what the people are saying and making policy out of it. And it's brilliant. I'm not going to call him a genius, but what he's doing and what they're doing and how closely they're paying attention and they're open to these new ideas, I think that's brilliant. Sorry.
being made all the time. You can't just take the total sum of all savings, divide that by the entire population of the United States, and expect to get an accurate answer. After all, that number encompasses children, non-taxpayers, non-citizens, and 185-year-olds still collecting Social Security. That was a joke. So if we want to calculate the number of people who paid taxes in any given year, according to the Tax Foundation, 77 million people, or the top 50%, paid 97.7% of all income tax in the United States. And if we round up to the people who paid some amount of income tax in the prior year, I think it's pretty safe to say that roughly 85 million people would theoretically get to benefit from a tax refund. From there, we then have to calculate what percentage of those savings could then be given back to each person. And according to Trump, this could amount to 20%, meaning if DOGE cuts $55 billion worth of spending, 20% of that is $11 billion. Spread that amongst 85 million people, and each person would receive, wait for it, $129, with the rest being applied towards other initiatives and paying down the government debt. Of course, keep in mind that DOGE has only been operating for a month, and if these savings continue at the same trajectory, over the course of a year, each person could see a $1,550 refund.
So the reason why I like his breakdown is he's not just doing the math, but he's giving you guys a realistic expectation of what this is going to look like. He's also, in a little bit, he's going to go over where that $5,000 number came from. Because I've seen from $1,000 to $8,000 to $11,000. And I'm like, that's what made me start looking into this. Like, all right, I have to narrow this down and figure out what this is all about. Sorry again.
So all of a sudden, those begin to add up. For example, in the beginning, DOGE aimed to cut $2 trillion worth of unnecessary expenditures. And if that were to happen, unlikely as it is, take 20% of that, spread it amongst 85 million people, and that is where you get the $5,000 headline that you've probably seen on the news. However, do keep in mind that that $2 trillion figure was later backtracked by Elon Musk, who called it the best case scenario, especially considering that the discretionary budget only went as high as 1.7 trillion. And just recently, Elon Musk tweeted that I never mentioned a specific dollar figure, just said that I would see if the president wanted to consider a tax reduction linked to DOGE savings. The amount would therefore obviously be proportional to how much savings DOGE actually achieves. The top DOGE priority remains, however, reducing the deficit to stop inflation and lowering people's interest rates. Although despite some of these numbers coming in much lower than expected, according to the proposal, the goal is to right the wrong done to the taxpayer, share the benefits of cost cutting, boost morale to increase U.S. tax receipts, and incentivize the labor force participation in 2025. On top of that, unlike the COVID-era stimulus checks, which were given out by individual with an income below a certain threshold and then phased out, it's not out of the ordinary to think that the same would apply here, except the exact opposite, as in the more money you make and paid in taxes, the more money you would get back. After all, if someone paid
So again, if you're not paying income taxes, and you're somebody who's just, I don't know, everyone seemed to have gotten a stimulus check last go around. But what he's saying is the more you put in, the more you get back because you are a taxpayer. There are a lot of people who don't pay federal income taxes. This is just what it is. Those are the people who get those, $10, $15, $20,000 refund checks. But a lot of it are credits for children. So again, the numbers weren't making sense. So like I said, I did a lot of digging to find a neutral source because a lot of people have their leanings and they won't just say them. So you got to find somebody who doesn't have those leanings, at least on that topic, and let them explain it. And this is the one that made the most sense to me.
$100,000 to the IRS. They should, in theory, be entitled to a greater percentage of the refund than the person who only paid $100, since that person contributed more. However, in terms of the likelihood of this passing, as well as the impact this is probably going to have on the economy, inflation, and its effectiveness of actually making a difference, you're going to want to hear this because there's a lot of misinformation floating around on the internet that you're going to want to be made aware of. Although before we go into that, just like it's important to be careful and aware of.
Let me skip past this ad. I had a timestamp. What's going on, Mel? We're going to go to 718. This gets past the ad. All right. Sorry.
Video. All right. Now, in terms of the impact another stimulus or refund could have on our economy, inflation, and your wallet, we need to talk about the ones who are tasked to control it, the Federal Reserve. In terms of upcoming interest rates, they have just gone on record to say that current policy is significantly less restrictive than it had been before the rate cuts, meaning we're unlikely to see them cut interest rates even further anytime soon, given the high probability of prices, believe it or not, going higher. In fact, according to their statement, it was indicated that firms would attempt to pass on to consumers higher input costs arising from potential tariffs. Or in other words, if companies end up paying more, then you end up paying more. All of this points to a very strong chance that we're probably not going to see any rate cuts anytime soon. The economy is going to remain strong because of tax cuts and deregulation, which is going to keep prices elevated. And they're going to take a wait-and-see approach for inflation to eventually return back to their 2% target, which could be a while. Separate from that, there's also the concern that another government payout is going to contribute to inflation and make it worse. And the answer to that is somewhat mixed. See, previous research suggested that 42% of the COVID-era inflation was the result of stimulus checks, which is certainly a lot, but since inflation is primarily caused by spending and not saving, one analysis made the argument that any inflation we see from this would be mild at most, because the households receiving a refund would be more likely to stash it away or invest instead of spending it.
And again, this is the difference between those stimulus checks during the pandemic, where everyone just got a check. And I'll go into that a little bit later on how ridiculous that was and how different that is from what we're looking at here.
Therefore, it wouldn't contribute as much to consumption. On top of that, this check wouldn't be printing more money out of thin air. It would simply be returning what people had already paid. But in terms of what I think about this, realistically, if people get $100 to $1,000 check out of nowhere, most likely it's going to be spent. That's just the way it is. I mean, keep in mind, as of now, the personal savings rate is at an all-time low. Household debt is at an all-time high. And if I were to bet, if $11 billion suddenly enters the economy again, there would most likely be a small uptick in inflation, albeit probably a lot smaller than what we saw back in 2022. Of course, you could also make the argument that tax cuts are inflationary, or really anything that gives people more money back in their pockets is likely to cause prices to rise at least a little bit. But all of that is to say that realistically, we're not going to get rate cuts anytime soon. There's likely going to be a long road ahead of us, especially if tariffs end up being passed back to the consumer. And we're likely going to have to patiently wait for inflation to return back to 2% before we see any movements on interest rates. That is, of course, unless we see a recession or any black swan event that we just can't see coming. Although,
to the tariff point, I don't know why everyone's obsessing over the tariffs. It is clearly a negotiating tactic. It's clearly worked, and we clearly have not had to implement high tariffs on anyone. And the ones we do have high tariffs on us, so it's not going to be inflationary. The costs aren't going to be put back on us. Yeah, I've gone over this before. I just don't. I don't agree with. I just don't agree with it. The assumption is when Trump says I'm going to do 100% tariff on, we'll just say Post-its, right? The assumption is that he's going to do it, and that the threat or the place that he's threatening is not going to make any adjustments and just allow this to happen. No one wants that to happen, so they're going to negotiate. It's just it's weird that everyone just accepts what he's saying as this is what it's going to be.
though, in terms of your chances of getting a refund check and my thoughts about everything that's just happened, here's what you need to know. Overall, I think you could tell I'm a fan of reducing government spending, waste, unnecessary expenditures, whatever you want to call it. I think it's long overdue. I mean, there should be no reality in which the Pentagon fails its 7th audit in a row, politicians are caught taking bribes, and hundreds of billions of dollars goes missing. It just seems common sense that all government spending should be public and traceable down to the penny. Or I guess in this case, no, down to the nickel. I just think there's no accountability and no incentive for the government to spend any less money because they become so accustomed to just pressing a button and printing more money that it doesn't matter. And the go-to solution has just been borrow more money, tax the rich, and blame the other side for your problems. And this applies, by the way, to both Democrats and Republicans. Neither side is perfect. This has been going on for decades. So from that perspective, yes, I am all for it, and I think there's a lot to cut down on. But it's yet to be seen how much of a difference this will actually make, how much can realistically be saved, and whether or not it's dangerous to take a cut-first, find out later approach. Like, admittedly, I have concerns about cutting services or departments which could be of service, but won't be found out until much later, until maybe some damage is done. Now, the flip side to this is that slowly cutting spending and then evaluating its effectiveness could take years or even decades. So I see why they're taking a cut very fast approach here. But like I said, I don't doubt that there are some uncertainties here that we're not going to know until much, much later. Like,
so the cutting very fast is a tactic, and it's well known, but I've recently heard Mr. Wonderful talking about this. You do that to get rid of the growing pains now. You don't want to just have this problem lingering on for 2 years where you're just finding out, oh, now we got to do this. Now we got to make another adjustment. Now we got to hire these people back. Now we got to fire these people. So you fire them all now. And then you bring people back as you need them. This is the approach that they do in business when you're doing a takeover of a business that's not doing well. We saw Elon Musk do this when he took over Twitter. He fired half or 75% of the entire workforce and then started bringing people back. That's what you do. It makes perfect sense. What's going on, Roll Rich? It makes perfect sense because having this problem linger on for a year or two, it only delays any. You won't even be able to tell what's going on. You won't be able to tell what the results are of your initial actions. So it makes perfect sense to slash, and then start bringing people back as you discover any mistakes that may have been made.
Remember that article about 150-year-olds collecting Social Security? Well,
okay, so this is important because I've heard a lot of people say that we're paying 150-year-olds, 300-year-olds for Social Security long after they're dead. Turns out that was just a algorithm issue. It's more of a data entry clerical error. They're not really getting paid. I guess when people pass away or fall out the system, it's still accounting for that pool, and it looks like these people are getting paid, but they're really not. Some of them are, but it's not going, 300 years, which the country is only 248 years. So that is another one of those really popular things that's going on right now that you hear that's just not true. It's not true.
Well, as it turns out, one of Trump's appointed commissioners clarified that these were simply people on record who didn't have a certificate of death, not that they were actually receiving benefits. And apparently, the Social Security Administration stops payments to people who are older than 115 years old, which has been in effect since 2015. I say this just to temper some of the expectations of massive savings up front, and some of the headline numbers you'll end up seeing are pretty ambitious. Not to mention, if you actually want to make a sizable difference to the government deficit up front in a way that's not controversial, two economists propose that you could simply allow agencies to roll over unused funds into the next fiscal year and don't let Congress use the funds as a gauge by which they reduce future budgets. I know, right? It just seems, again, it's common sense. I don't see how anyone could disagree with this.
I disagree with it. And the reason I disagree with it is because you're still allowing that bureaucracy to allocate funds. So, for instance, back when I was young, on the south side of Chicago, and my mother was getting welfare, if you don't spend all of your benefits, they'll either reduce your benefits or you have to go in and prove that you need the amount of benefits with the threat of you'll lose some of your benefits. So what people would do, and my mother's passed away, there's nothing can come back to her, is they would sell. At that time, there was actually physical paper food stamps. They would sell them, get cash back, or they would go on a shopping spree. So what he's saying, in theory, makes sense. Roll it over. But the problem is, I think, in order to get more funding, they'll go on a spending spree. And that's just what bureaucracies do. That's what any kind of organization that's getting money that's not theirs, that wasn't earned, that's what they do. That's what people do. They take advantage of a system and say, you know what? Why would I allow this to roll over if I can use it all right now and then get the same amount of money? And it makes it harder to gauge how much they really should be getting. So I disagree. So he said, I can't think of it. Well, he's never had family members or parents on welfare, clearly. He's a millionaire in his late 20s, so I don't think he's ever experienced that. And I don't think he fully understands what bureaucrats will do. And they will look at it and say, oh, wow. They won't pay attention to the fact that you just spent, $500 of your $1,500 that you get on welfare. What's going on, Uncle L? They won't pay attention to that. Wait, why did he just spend it on the 30th and tomorrow's the 31st? Well, that's why they did it. They don't pay attention. They don't track it that way. They don't audit. And that's the issue with bureaucrats. They just do. And there's red tape that you have to get through to do. So they don't care about how you spend it. They just know on the first, that money better not be there, or we're going to call you back in and cut your funds. Well, that allows and actually encourages wasteful spending.
Prove me wrong. Secondly, as far as your likelihood of getting a refund, I actually think it's a pretty good chance over the next year or two, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. After all, any savings would have to be audited, locked in, and guaranteed long-term before you get any money back. Personally, I think you're way more likely just to get a federal tax credit towards money paid in future years than you are to get a check or Visa gift card applied today. That would just be way too difficult to implement. But all of this,
I don't think it would be too difficult to implement. The IRS has all of the data already. I think checks are a much better incentive than just getting credits, because I guess it would work either way, but the people aren't going to feel it. There's no morale boost by just getting a credit on your taxes in February or January or March, whenever you first start getting your W-2s. So I think the check is the best thing to do. I think they already know how to do it. They've done it. They did it with stimulus checks. Now, granted, that was just a blanket issuing of checks, but this is even, to me, even easier because you know who pays income tax. That's who's going to get a check. It's not just going to everybody.
At this point, it's just speculation. Let me know what you guys think of this down below in the comments section.
All right, so when you hear people talking about this, that's what they're talking about. It's not what they're making it seem like it is. So what I wanted to talk about is, because you have people on the right throwing this out there, you have people on the left throwing this out there, and most quote-unquote conservatives are against cash giveaways. And the reason is, when you saw what happened with the stimulus, everyone just got a check, so they had to print money to do that. In this case, we earned this money. The government took it, misused it. We should be allowed to get it back, in my opinion. This is completely different than just a giveaway. It's not a giveaway, it's a give back. And I have zero issues with that. So I want to talk today about why I'm totally open to this versus reparations. So the reparations conversation is a little bit different. All right. This is actually, I dropped the link also if anybody wants to come up, if you are in favor of reparations, if you are for or against this. I'm totally open to talking about it. I'm not going to debate, but I'm curious as to why you think it would work. And then I have my objections, because again, I'm against giveaways. I'm against reparations. And we can talk about why. But the first issue I've always had with reparations is who's eligible. Is it all Black people? Is it just American Black people? What if you're from Nigeria and you came to this country 20 years ago, 30 years ago, in the 60s, in the 70s? What fraction of reparations are you eligible for? Why? What percentage of blood would you need? What if you are African American, or whatever you want to call us today? If you're a Black American and you derive from America, but it was a slave owner who impregnated your great grandmother, you still qualify. You owe, so it sounds ridiculous, but these are things that need to be thought out, expressed, and figured out before you just start giving checks. You just give it to everyone. Anyone who's Black, you get a check. You also have, well, that's just the lineage side, but you also have the issue of how much is enough. If you get a check and they say the check is $40,000, is that enough? You understand how much that is when you multiply it by, I don't know, 30 million people? Does that help? Again, back to is that enough? Are people still going to say, nope, that's not enough, we want more? Should it be $1 million, $2 million? What is the number? That's always been the two biggest objections to this. If you're for it, again, hit the link. I would love to hear your ideas on how we can implement it. How would you scale this nationwide? Because I believe there's 30, let me see how many Black people there are in this country. I believe it's 33 to 35 million. How many? Let's see. How many Black Americans in the United States? 41 now. All right. So that's a whole different number. This is, whew, that's as of 2023. That number is astronomical. I thought we were still in the 30s. So what would, I just think this is really, really, really complex. You know, back to the lineage. What if your ancestry is from England, but you're Black, but your ancestors moved here in the 30s, and you're not necessarily from slavery, but you suffered through Jim Crow. I just think these things have to be considered. And if you look at historical reparations, it's usually within the lifetime of the events. The Japanese Americans, Jewish Americans, Irish Americans, people who've gotten paid, Native Americans. Now, Native Americans was a little bit later, but they track their lineage way, 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 way more detailed and different. That's a completely different animal. You cannot claim, you can't just walk in and say, hey, I'm Apache Indian, Native American. You can't do that. They have everything on the books. Their census is really different than ours. We do ours every 10 years. It used to be really lax. You could change your name just by partaking in the census back in the day. So it's not the same. But Mel Dub came up, and he's in here right now, and you see him. He just said he's an advocate for reparations, just not cash. I want to show a short that he put up. Let's see, a while back, and we actually talked about this before, but let me see if I have it. I better have it. I should have it. There it is. All right, so let me play this, and this is an idea I had never heard thrown out before, and I really like it. I still would like to know how it would be implemented, and we spoke about it, but I want to play this real quick because, again, I haven't heard anyone come at it from this perspective before.
1940, the South Carolina General Assembly is going to pass the Negro Acts in response to a slave revolt. In those Negro Acts, they're going to prohibit teaching slaves how to read and write. In 1831, in the state of Virginia, after a failed slave revolt, the Virginia General Assembly is going to pass a law that says it's illegal to teach slaves to read and write. Not only that, if a slave is caught reading and writing, that slave can potentially be punished or even maimed. Then we have the Jim Crow laws that happened in 1896 to roughly about 1975 because those southern states did not want to comply. The education system was so bad that we had to have a Brown versus Board of Education ruling in 1954 to determine that blacks were not receiving an equal or fair education. So you think about it, if you live in South Carolina alone, you're talking about 12 generations of interrupted education between slavery and Jim Crow laws. If nothing else, blacks deserve an educational reparation. Come on.
I have zero issues with that. I would like to know how to implement it. And it looks like Mel's coming up, so that's awesome. Thank you, sir. I agree with that. There was a concerted effort to keep us uneducated, and we went through a long time of not having access to education. So if you were to guarantee education for Black America, I have no issue with that. None at all. There would have to be oversight over the schools to make sure they're not gouging, because we all know what universities and colleges do. Absolutely. I don't see anything, Mel. I don't know if your camera's not on. Oh, no, sorry. That's his, that's the video I just played. I called it Mel Dub. I thought that was Mel who came up. Sorry. So I don't know how you would implement it, how you would audit the reparations, how you would allocate the money. That's all. I think that's way easier to figure out and implement than it would be to do cash reparations or even land reparations. I just don't know how you would go about that. But what Mel said in that video is the most sound argument that I've seen for any form of reparations, and the most logical. And I really do. I like that idea. It's not a cash giveaway. It goes directly to the schools. You're not cutting checks to people and then giving them the ability to just go buy stuff with it and never show up for school. Oh, now the real Mel just came up. Sorry, man. Your video was called Mel Dub, and I guess I should have labeled it something different. What's going on, man? How you doing? Can't hear you if you're talking. I cannot hear. I see you. I can't hear you though. You're up. No, you're up, but I can't hear you. I have you on the main stage. You pull back up. Say something. No, I can't hear you. Miss Phoenix. She's trying to get timed. Yeah, I can see you. I put you back in the backstage. Yeah, come back up. So yeah, that's the most sound argument I've heard for any form of reparations, and I think it's the most impactful. Can't spend it. You can utilize it in the workforce. I just, to me, that's the only real argument that I've heard. But if you're for cash, or if you're for land, or any other form of reparations, I would love to hear the ideas. If I challenge those ideas, I'm not arguing with you. I'm genuinely trying to understand how we could implement something like that. And now that Trump's getting rid of DEI, I almost said DUI, DEI, and the Department of Education will actually have oversight, I think this is even a better idea now, because the waste that they're able to get away with has just been absolutely ridiculous and harmful to this country. But cash, I'm not interested in it at all. I'm just not. Let's try this again, Mel. Hello?
Hey, brother, you able to hear me?
Yes, sir. You are up.
Yeah. I just had to switch on my phone. I got another computer I'm using, so I guess I got to do some work with that.
Cool. So to your education argument, what I was just saying is right now with Trump gutting DEI and the Department of Education, I think this is a perfect time to discuss and try to implement what your educational reparations are, because there's eyes on it now. Before I was more skeptical. When we actually spoke about it, I was more skeptical of the Department of Education, because it's just a massive bureaucracy, and they waste just as much as anybody else.
No,
So
absolutely. But now they're finding money that's being legitimately wasted. So they're now gutting and cutting those programs that, let's say, the NAACP pushes a lawsuit against the federal government or claiming a civil rights issue or something like that, and then the way they resolve it is the NAACP then leads a training for the federal government, and the government gives the NAACP a grant. That's how they get their hustle.
Hundreds of millions of dollars through that nonsense.
Well, I understand that's what their hustle is. Why do you think Planned Parenthood was so mad? Why do you think Planned Parenthood was so mad about their funding getting cut? Because they knew their hustle was the federal government by posing as a place to give women free checkups and mammograms when they know they're an abortion factory.
Horrible.
But to what you just brought up, so you said as far as like you don't know how it could be implemented or who would get what. So the first thing is this: if somebody is black, whether they be Jamaican ancestry, whether they be British ancestry, whatever the case may be, they would not qualify for federal benefits. It only has to be people who can document and prove that they are African descendants of American slavery from 1787, when America was established as a republic. So that's where you would eliminate anybody coming from the outside saying that they were a part of it. The good thing about slave owners, there's not anything good about them, but they did keep records. So you can
find one good thing.
It's not hard. It's not hard to trace.
The good thing about slave owners, and then just
don't do. Yeah. So they do keep records. So that would dispel any concerns about who gets it. You could
Mhm.
easily trace that money back. Academically, if it went to, so to me, all this money we're recouping, one of the biggest issues that this country is facing is student debt.
Yeah.
And Black Americans or Black college graduates accrue over 50% more student debt than non-black college graduates. Now I can explain to you why, and I can show you how colleges manipulate people to over borrow and overspend. Now I still have student debt. Well, I'm not gonna say I'm paying on it per se because I'm in one of those. I'm fortunate to get a loan forgiveness as a teacher, but
That's
I'm in that process right now. However, for those who are not in teaching or who don't qualify for loan forgiveness, or it should make it easier for loan forgiveness. If you are a person who is black and you have student debt, to me, that should that money should go. That should be your form of reparation, and I believe that would be feasible to do. Or if you are a descendant of African slavery in America, you should be afforded a right, in my opinion, or an opportunity to a college education if it were available through that reparation. Because, as I stated before, my argument is we're the only race of people who were legally prohibited access to an education.
so
So
I have a
that's how I
question.
believe it could be rolled out.
I have a question. So if you're um, Black American, you can prove everything, and you've already paid off most of your loan, would you recoup that, or that it doesn't seem fair to that person that other people get theirs wiped and you've paid and you maybe only have 8 grand left, 10 grand left. Would you recoup that? Would they cover that? And how would you disperse that, or would you?
Well, the mistake I think a lot of people make is that they believe that reparations is supposed to be a fair system. You got to keep in mind you're actually recouping money from people who neither had slaves or were slaves themselves. Had slaves to give to people who were not slaves themselves. So
Mhm.
it's already an unfair system. To me, in that situation, I think it's just something that people would have to accept and take a loss for.
Man, I would be
Either,
so mad.
yeah, I know you would, but then think about this also. When there are certain states or certain areas that get stimulus checks where certain parts of the country doesn't get a stimulus check. There are states that get different levels of relief funding when natural disasters happen. There's no, a hurricane happens here in Central Florida. There's no, oh well, you get $50,000 for relief, but a fire happens in California and they say, well, Florida
750.
got 50,000, you got to get 50,000. See, it varies. So, so it's not really a fair system. The federal
Hmm.
government's not a fair system, anyways.
Hmm. Oh man,
As
that's not
as
fair.
much as I bullshitted that answer, that's about the best as I can tell you to say. Too bad, too sad.
Yeah, that's not cool. That's not. I would not be for that. Because it would feel like you're getting punished for being responsible, and I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that.
Well, aren't we already getting punished for being responsible? I've never taken out a food stamp a day in my life, but here we are paying for people to be on food stamps because they may not have been responsible. Yes, I agree. Loan people taking out an exorbitant amount of loans is a gross irresponsibility, but so is a business going out and taking out a government loan and not being able to pay it back, and that business gets forgiven from their loans. So I believe we have to. I believe for conservatives or people on the right side, they have to have a hard conversation about student debt forgiveness, especially when it comes to us forgiving um, some business loans or when it comes to subsidizing businesses in the same way, because the greatest investment you can make is in the American people, and you're not going to get the money back anyway. Think about it. Do you really think 70 million people who are in debt repayment or are supposed to be in debt repayment are actually going to pay back that money that we are, because what is it, over $500 billion in outstanding student loans now or something like that? That's
Probably
not going to
more
get
than that.
repaid. Yeah, take the L, America. That's all I can
Wave.
say. You
So you
know,
wave. All right. So another question. Um, through Jim Crow and all of that, if you came over during that, you still were robbed of the same education as everyone else. Does it have to be descendants of slaves? Because if you
to
go back
me,
to
it
the
would have to be.
1800s, oh, sorry, go ahead, go ahead.
To me, it would have to be descendants of slaves
Mm. Why?
because you're talking about. Oh no, but go ahead and finish your point though, so I
No,
can
I was
make
just
sure
gonna
I'm
say
clear
because
on
you go
my
back to the
response to
1800s,
you.
it's not like we had fair education then either. Um,
Mhm.
you go back to the early 1900s, you go back to the 1950s. Our education was not on par. So does that matter, or is it really just about slavery reparations? Because that's part of those 12
Slavery and
generations.
yeah, but slavery and reparations. I can speak to you directly because, as Phoenix Rising said, being a fake ass teacher. But I can tell you, looking at some of the academic deficiencies you see are generational. They have a more profound impact on black students, and that's just being bluntly honest.
Yeah,
And I used to think it was kids just didn't want to do something, but then you think about it. If your generation of education was limited up until realistically the 1980s, you're grossly behind everybody else when it comes to catching up and understanding, like just as far as the consistent expectations of education. So I would say it shouldn't be Jim Crow just because we're talking about the federal government,
hmm
and federally
the rules were in
when
place. It's just the
slavery
states
was
that defined.
abolished.
Got it.
Oh, are you able
No,
to
no,
hear me?
sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying federally when slavery was abolished, technically that removed the federal, that placed the states with the burden of education. So that's why
Got
I would say it should go back to just slavery and not Jim Crow, because Jim Crow is more of a state issue.
it. Interesting. Interesting. It still is the best argument I've heard for reparations. And then how I would separate both of those from stimulus is uh, I hate that the stimulus had to be done, but that was the federal government and a lot of states saying you cannot work. So I had no issue with the stimulus check. I didn't like it because everyone knew what they were doing to give us those checks, and not everyone
Mhm.
got those either. But at least it made sense that hey, if you're going to stop people from being able to make a living, even all the way down to Uber drivers, all the way up to federal employees, um, you better do something so that they can get food and they can live off of. So I really didn't have an issue with stimulus. I didn't think we needed as many as we got, and I think a lot of people did what we knew they would do and waste. But if you're not allowing people to earn a living and you are intentionally, sort of felt like hurting the economy, I had no issue with it, which is why I don't have an issue with them losing their jobs now, because they were all active
No, not at all.
participants, in my opinion. But yeah, that's the
Not
difference
at
to
all.
me.
Mhm. No, I would say I don't have a problem with them losing their jobs either, because people got to show up and go to work every day, and you can't just sit at home and then expect to, and here's the other crazy thing. There have been plenty of times I called the Department of Education, but they have outsourced their call services, and I'm getting people with accents, and I don't have a problem with people with accents, but I'm saying you're getting people with accents and people who are clearly not in the federal, in a federal building working for our government. So now we're not even we're not even we don't the agencies I'm paying taxes for, that I could go to if I have a grievance, doesn't even give me the service I need.
Yep.
And that's why the people in North Carolina was upset about FEMA as well. They're paying taxes and they're not getting services, but then you look and see other people or other groups getting, $25,000 towards a house or to live here and other things of that nature. So
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I don't know if you saw there was a Let me see if I can see it. There was, let's see. I had it up. But apparently there was an email. So now I'm paraphrasing because I don't have the story right here. Apparently there was an email sent out by the DOGE team or either Elon Musk or an attorney, whatever, to the Department of Education employees saying, hey, you need to start reporting to work, or there's voluntary termination that's going to start happening if you don't respond to this email. I guess it went out at like 10 o'clock at night. And I think they gave them 2 days, 2 or 3 days, but they're complaining now. Well, what if nobody checks the emails? And it's like, well, wait a minute. So not only are you at home, they're saying you got to report to work, but not only are you at home, but you don't even bother to check your emails. And that was like a legitimate complaint. People were complaining, well, what if they don't check their emails? Not everybody checks their emails. And I'm like, what world do you people live in where that's acceptable?
Yeah. Oh, I'm telling you, listen, when it came through certification processes and other things, when I've called the not the state, but I've called the federal government, or when it came to applying for the PSFL loan forgiveness and stuff, you have to wait on the phone for hours. And I'm thinking, if we have all these federal employees at this one particular agency, why am I waiting on for hours to maybe talk to somebody? And especially if the agency closes at 5 o'clock, and if you call at 4:40-ish, they're not going to answer the phone intentionally because they're not going to deal with you. They're just going to wait till the phone service automatically redirects you.
Yep.
So
since COVID, they have not had to go into work. So you have all these contracts, lease agreements that they're not being utilized. It's just waste. And not every position needs to be customer facing or consumer facing positions where you have to be at work, but most of these they really should be at work. But I found it right here. Look at this. Listen to this woman complain to CNN about that email that I was just referring to. This is funny.
First, just tell us about this email and what it was like receiving it and what you all have talked about after getting it.
Sure. I got this email Saturday afternoon, about 3 p.m. And I felt absolutely infuriated getting this email with a demand within 48 hours to provide a response on what I did within the last week or face termination. This is clearly an attempt from Elon Musk to harass and bully and intimidate the federal workforce, which is part of his broader plan to gut the federal workforce.
There it is right here. Before she finishes, actually, I'll let her finish, then we can read that. This is hilarious.
And privatize public sector services to ensure that corporations like his own can get more profit. And that makes me really angry, my coworkers as well.
So the email just asked, hey, what did you do last week? And they gave her 48 hours. So she had till 3 p.m. on Monday. And she's complaining that she got this email. Just 5 bullet points of what you accomplished last week. I can do that within 5 minutes with what I do. The deadline was Monday at noon. Why is that a problem? Who doesn't have to respond to emails? To me, this was fascinating. Wow.
But even with that, though, just the very fact that you're infuriated with a basic question like that is almost insulting to know that you are a federal employee and you feel like you don't have to justify your job, to the American people. And that, to me, that's probably more insulting than anything else, and that's why I never get caught up in those furlough conversations when people say, oh, the government's going to shut down. People are going to get furloughed and out of work. A government job is the most secure job you can have in America because, number one, if they get furloughed, they almost always get back pay. Yeah. They gave they even gave those people who don't want to work for the Trump administration federal government, they gave them a compensation package to take.
Well, so they offered it initially, and a lot of people said no. And now these are the ones who are complaining because hey, show what you did. So yeah, it's even worse than that. They were offered a compensation and refused it because they thought they were untouchable.
Yeah, it's just that's it's mind blowing to me, and it just goes back to what I said earlier in terms of how stressed out the federal government has made itself by making it the largest employer of the nation.
Yeah.
And the federal government was not designed to be the largest employer of the nation.
And their job growth has been outpacing the private sector for years now. And it doesn't make sense. Now, I don't know if this is real. I just still thought it was funny. It says, being that I'm extremely busy U.S. postal worker, I only had time to complete 4 tasks last week. This has to be a joke. I arrived to work on Monday, 2 hours because there were good songs on the radio. Didn't want to leave my car. Took an envelope from a customer, sent it priority mail 30 minutes, licked the stamp 3 hours, wrote this email 4 days, 2 hours. That's essentially what they're doing. It's so absurd that they don't want to answer a question that we have to account for in the private sector on a daily basis. Like, at least when I assign things, I do work lists, and you have to sign off what you did. Okay, well, which tasks did you complete? So I can see who's carrying the load and who's not. So I don't understand why it's a problem to have to say what you did.
I don't understand that either, because if somebody asked me, okay, what are 4 things you do every single day? I could name 10.
Yeah.
I can name 20. You know what I'm saying? So I don't think it's, I don't think that's a hard question to ask. I think the Department of Government Efficiency is a great thing to have, because we do have a lot of waste there. But I don't think it's something that we should not give back to the people, because this government has been taken from the people for a lot of times. So whether it be a stimulus package, whether it be pacifying the debate over reparations by saying, if you are a person of African American descent, or whatever the case may be, for the next 3 generations or something, your family will not have to pay for college. I don't know what the case may be. I don't know. I feel like this money shouldn't be, oh, well, hey, we found this, we recouped this money back, and now let's put it in a rainy day fund. I don't think that's.
Yeah, that's why I didn't. When he said, carrying stuff over to the next year, I'm like, nah, I don't like that for the reasons I gave. But yeah, it just doesn't. For morale and for people to understand what's truly happening, you got to see it. Show me the money, and it's mine anyway. So who are you to say I'm just going to hold on to it? I'll be your bank. No, I'm good. I'll take it and I'll do what I want with it. I'll get my XRP or whatever I want to put my money into. You already had your chance.
Thanks for that advice too. By the way, I caught that real quick. That is $2.25. So
it's still down there. Yeah, it dropped down to 207.
Thank you for that. So yeah,
steal. Here's another one. This is an actual federal employee. She was on CTG's show. Did you see this one?
No, I hadn't caught it.
You'll like this. Listen up. She's a federal employee.
I got the email, and I honestly feel like this is a great opportunity to outline what you as an employee bring to the company, bring to the federal government. And if it's really good what you outline, they could give you an opportunity to get a promotion or something. Like, God forbid, they ask you what you've done. Any other job, they'll ask you at the end of the week, at the end of the month, because I used to do bookkeeping. Okay, so what did we do, at the end of the month? What are the clients that we have to, gear towards?
Common sense.
So at the end of the day, God forbid anybody make any, and it's this democratic thing. It's like, I don't want to get the parties into it, but they don't want to go to work. They want to work from home. People are not working from home. This is what you signed up for. If you don't like it, resign. You know what I'm saying? They gave you the opportunity to find another job. I mean, it's not that hard. You're complaining about actually working. I don't get it.
I'm not mad at your perspective. That's why I like talking to people. I like talking to people, and I like talking to people who are in it, because everybody sees things a different way.
I haven't heard this perspective. Do you feel like there are a lot of people that are not working, that are taking days off? I guess exactly.
Absolutely. I work from home, and you know what? Donald Trump got the gadget idea because Elon Musk, he fired like 80% of the Twitter people or Tesla people for his company because you can buy a gadget that actually shakes up like you're at the desk, but you're really not working because the computers, it shuts off if it's non-activity within like 5 minutes. So it requires you to actually work from home. But it's gadgets around that, and the people are actually buying it and using it and not working. And this is our taxpayers' money. And you have to work. Yeah, you don't like it, get another job.
I understand what you're saying, but you can't just take a wrecking ball to the infrastructure of the federal government and just start firing people all willy-nilly. Because what about those who work at the nuclear workers who they fired and then ended up realizing like, oh, we need these people, or the people who work at I think it was the USDA who were overseeing the bird flu. You can't just fire them.
I agree. Right, I agree with you on that. But the people that's complaining about writing an email, it's going to take, 5 minutes out of your day, 10 minutes? I read on Twitter, the guy was complaining, oh, it's going to be an hour. It takes you an hour to write 5 things that you completed? Okay, maybe you do need another job.
Oh, so you agree with it. Okay, thank you, Mama.
Yeah, they were not expecting that, especially from a black woman, because she clearly sounds like a black woman.
But and the way he was the way he, was trying to defend it was just like, they made a mistake as far as like firing those workers. But I hate people with the notion of, well, you can't just, we need change, but we can't change.
Yeah, it's weird. You can't just take a wrecking ball. Why not?
Yeah, why not?
Why is it a wrecking ball to say, hey, justify your job?
Yeah,
everybody that hard.
And it's so funny to hear black folks, now defend the federal government when internally we have always been critical of the federal government, always considered them to be. We saw Jesse Jackson Jr. rip off people. We saw Charlie Rangel rip off people. William Jefferson put money in a freezer. Everything we have known about our elected officials has been mostly synonymous with some type of government misuse or misappropriation of funds, and that dealt with some nefarious activity. So for these people now to sit up here and act like the government is this great guardian of your tax dollar is ridiculous.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. was a funny one because I'm from Chicago. He went to jail. I think his wife did too, and he still got elected. That's how corrupt that city is.
So corrupt.
Because he got elected after he got his jail time, which is like, what this is. There's no way. There's just no way. But apparently there is. If you grease enough palms and yeah. Anyway, so back to the reparations. My biggest issue is, and I know there's no answer for this one. But if you go into a field that's not going to net you the amount of money that you put into it, would the government? I guess they can't discourage people from going into different fields. I'm kind of answering my own question. They can't really discourage you from going into a field that's going to net you $40,000 or gross you $40,000 a year and pay a loan that's sizable. Would they have any say over where you go or how you allocate?
So this is where student debt happens.
Yep.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you took out student debt when you were going to college. I don't know if your kiddos did the same thing or accrued student debt. But this is how it happens. Yep. So what happens is this: the government gives full discretion to the school to request the funding. So I got caught in a situation at one of my institutions where the college encouraged maximum loan amounts because they're like, oh, well, you need it for living expenses. So they actually pushed for that. Now, keep in mind, the books that they sold just happened to be over $150 worth of books that their professors wrote. And I'll never forget, this was in 2006 or 7. A box of cereal in the bookstore cost $6. So, but you can get a voucher with your loan money. So what I'm saying is these schools were given this full threshold. And so if you're a black kid coming from the inner city and you don't have mom and dad or you're a first generation college student, it's easier for you to manipulate that demographic. And that's why I was telling you before that that particular demographic has a 50% higher student borrow rate than other people. And I'm talking about exorbitant amounts because they were conditioned to use this as a survival, and they were manipulated by their schools to do so. So, if that makes sense.
No, it does. I had a teacher who's the required reading for the on the syllabus. The required reading was her husband's book, who also worked at the school that I was going to. And I'm like, so you're just you're gonna force us to buy your family's book, huh? So yeah, I when you said that, I know that for a fact that they force you to buy their own books. But yeah, the manipulation, and especially if you're if you're in the inner city. I know I'm just picturing when I was going to college in Chicago. Same thing. Yeah, it's actually a come up because you're actually getting, to your point, credits toward things. That's interesting.
So that's why I've always said, as far as I can't really call myself an advocate for it because haven't written a proposal and have actually I did write a proposal on that, but I haven't presented that proposal yet. Hopefully my future new governor, that's something I can submit to him to look at. So if we get him in the governorship, so yeah.
Who's he
But
running against?
probably the same lady who called him a blackface for white supremacy, because she's the reject that got stomped by DeSantis. So yeah, probably her. So she is a clueless, classless, bigoted clown, as far as I'm concerned.
So what we're talking about is Byron Donalds. Let me see if I have a Byron Donalds out of Florida is going to be running for governor. And Mel and I actually talked about this on a panel before. Well, I guess there's no reason to pull this up. That's what we're talking about. So Byron Donalds is trying to become the governor of Florida. So I was asking who he was running against, and that's the reason why he says hopefully he can give some proposals to him. But yeah, so I think he's going to win. I don't see how a race baiter can beat him in Florida. I don't see that.
Oh no, he's definitely win. But back to even with the job situation, as far as like people getting jobs that produce the same amount of money they're borrowing. Well, the question then becomes: I believe that the colleges should be put on the hook for a lot of the student debt that's incurred. So, give you another example. There are programs of study designed where kids have to go and take electives that have no bearing on their
Oh my
career
God,
path,
yes.
no bearing on their goals, no bearing on what type of job they want to pursue. But if they don't take these electives, they will not graduate. They will not be able to graduate. So we've allowed these programs to exist, where where colleges can force people to take certain electives. I went to a college that I had to take, I believe, 26 religion credit hours, and you need 18 credit hours for a an associate's. So I didn't get or a minor. You need 18 credit hours for a minor. I didn't get a minor in religion, but I was required to take that. So I think we have to get back to the point where we put that onus back on not the borrower. The borrower made the mistake of borrowing, but I do believe that the colleges were culpable in manipulating borrowers to over borrow for their own selfish greed and gains, to pay these DEI professors or force these students to buy books that their professors write, or to fund things that had nothing to do with the advancement of those students' education. So I would like to see that money go either towards student debt or towards reparations. Could it go towards a stimulus? Yes, but then at the same time, the stimulus checks would go to people who, can we guarantee that it would go to American
No,
taxpayers?
definitely not. Yeah. So that's interesting. I had the same thing happen when I transferred from. So I went to 2 art schools in Chicago. I went to Columbia College, and then I went to the Art Institute, um, or the American Academy of Art. I transferred to the Art Institute of California in Santa Monica, and they tried to deny a lot of my credits. And it's like, what are you talking about? I can fine arts credits like 102, life drawing 102, life drawing 101, and try to make me take them over again. So as soon as you said that, I'm like, oh yes, they do that. I know for a fact they did that. I had I don't remember what class, but they wanted me to take like a chemistry class, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to be a fine arts teacher and do computer animation. Why would I need any kind of class that even resembles chemistry? So the science classes that I took in life drawing were anatomy classes. You learn all the muscles, you learn the structures so that you can convey those when you're drawing. It made sense. But when I went there, they were literally trying to get me to take chemistry classes, and I'm like, what are we doing here? So I fought that. I was a little bit older, so I was able to fight it, and they eventually just let it go. But yeah, they were trying to hold me back and make me take courses, one that I had already completed, especially the life drawing classes. Made no sense because I was a better artist than all the teachers who were teaching fine arts there. So it really made no sense.
Mm-hmm.
But then on top of that, the chemistry, that one really annoyed me. That one really opened my eyes.
Look, bro, I had to take a course called Religion and Film. Do you know what we did in that? Do you know what I did in that course?
What?
All we did was we sat down and we watched movies, and we asked questions. What you think? Look, so I watched the movie. I remember watching the movie Contact. With what's the guy's name? The one who was in the
I
movie
know
with
what you're
Tommy
talking
Lee.
about. What does that have to do
Yeah,
with religion?
e- exactly. We watched the
Wow.
movie Dead Man Walking. So you see what I'm saying? Like it's like this is what was my elective options, or I could have took swimming as an elective, but I didn't. It was religion or film or swimming, or something like that. So the colleges have to be, um,
Yeah, there's got to be accountability for sure.
yeah, the colleges have to be held accountable, and especially with the trade route going, the way things are going, with the trade directions, I think, you're not going to get that money back that people borrowed. Is not, if you want to sustain the economy and make them worthwhile contributors to society. I just don't see, I don't see that happening. You know, so there has to be some sense of a forgiveness, or there has to be some sense of you know, of a reparation of some sort. And that's why I didn't disagree with Joe Biden on the need to give student forgiveness, because economically to me it would make sense, to kind of cut your loss and take your loss.
Mm-hmm.
And but at the same time, the way he went about doing it was just such a stupid way.
All you got to do is figure out a way to make it part of the bankruptcy filings, at least make it eligible in some cases. They didn't even do that. They
Yeah.
just tried to just do it blanket, and that we
Mhm.
knew that wasn't going to work. But yeah, it was always weird that you couldn't do that if you were going to file bankruptcy. You'd still be stuck with that. It's like, huh?
Mhm.
How does that work? Because a lot of people's issue is that it's medical and it's student loans. But yeah, that chemistry thing opened my eyes, and the fine art, the life drawing 101. I literally pulled out my work right there on the
Yeah.
spot while this director or whoever he was trying to tell me I needed to take the course and that the credits didn't apply, just to get me to have to take more credits. I pulled out my work right there and put it on there, and he's like, "You didn't do these." I'm like, "Are you serious right now? What are we doing?"
Yeah.
I was
And
like, "You
see,
want me to
but
draw you right now? I can do it. It'll take 5 minutes." And I
but
had
see,
to
look,
show this guy.
you had to take you that, but that's towards your degree.
Yes.
Why did I have to look? So why did I, as a history, or first as an education degree seeker, why did I have to take art?
That's funny.
Who's going to be teaching, a core content? Why did I have to take art? I have a degree in history. Why did I have to take an art class?
That's
You know, why did I have to take, it's like certain courses, like it was just like, oh yeah, they use, and I'm talking about conservative, because I went to a conservative college as well. They used the system, the federal student loan system, to maximize their profits, and they manipulated students to take out exorbitant amount of student loans.
That's the only thing that could be, because there's no reason to force people to take. So the whole accreditation, how do you say that? I don't know what that's considered, but that whole system was weird to me because they were picking and choosing what they would take and what they wouldn't take. I never understood that. If it's credited, it should be accredited. Like, how can you override that at your school? That could be one of the reasons why that school went under. Because I'm sure there were lawsuits, because not everyone could articulate and fight and was old enough like myself to understand what was happening. Because I'm like, no, I'm not taking that again. You're just trying to get me to pay more money and force me to get more credit hours. I'm like, I'm not doing that. And I told them, okay, all right, how long you want me to take? I'm gonna start doing some gesture drawings of you right now, so I can show you that I understand the basics of life drawing. Why I should be taking 101 makes no sense. Same thing I did with the chemistry. I just refused. I was like, okay, well then I'm just not coming here. And they called me back and said, no, I was able to work it out with the director of whatever, and you can still, okay, yeah, all right, okay, buddy. But there's so many kids there who are just like, oh, okay, dang, I wish I could. You didn't have to take this class again. And it's like, no, you don't have to do that. You're the prize in that instant. You're the money. And I don't see that. I'm the customer. You can't tell me what I have to do. Like, are you crazy?
And I was naive when I went in. So yeah, I was one of those ones that, oh, okay, I guess I got to take those courses. And then I'm looking back on it. This is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate. Why I'm so passionate about education is because the process that they put kids who want to become educators through is ridiculous. They don't get them to, like, you got to take a biology course if you're going to be a history teacher. You got to take history courses if you want to be a math teacher. It makes absolutely zero sense whatsoever. And so they found a way to make money and get these college students to say, they tell a college student, they when I was way back then, they told me, oh, well, you live on your own, so you need, realistically, the way it should have worked is, this is how much your college classes cost. This is what you get. We'll give you a $500 stipend on top of that if you eat in the cafeteria or whatever. That's it. The government didn't manage the funding. What the government did was they, and I'm pretty, they allocated it, and I'm pretty sure G. Will or even Vince, if they finished up at college, that they probably can speak for that as well.
Yeah.
Like they said, okay, colleges here, get them however much money they take out. This is what they get, and the colleges manipulated that for their own benefit and their own good.
Yep. I don't know if I told this story before on here, but I had to leave college for a while because I got supposedly an overpayment. So what I did was an English class. Again, I don't know, whatever. If you're going to be in storyboarding and scripting, I guess that's necessary. But it was an English class that I got into, got my disbursement, but then they canceled the class. I don't even remember why they canceled the class. I didn't know they canceled the class until I showed up the first day and they said the class has been canceled. Then I get a letter saying I owe the money back. I'm like, well, hold on. Because I used that money to buy, I think it was the whole Adobe package. So I had Photoshop, Premiere for my computer, one of my computer animation classes. And I was like, why can't you just apply this to another class? And they said no. So it became an overpayment. I was out of school for like 3 years over that. That's why I was older when I went to the other school. And I'm like, it just never made sense to me. And it took them a while to realize, well, wait a minute, that wasn't your fault. You signed up. Everything was approved. Everything was good. we didn't fulfill the class and you should have just been moved. And I'm like, okay, so what do we do here? And they were like, you owe the money. And like I said, it took like 2-3 years before they realized they probably should have been trying to hold me accountable for it. And I finally was able to go back. That's when I went back in California.
But see, this is the stories that Republicans and conservatives, they, one, we don't do a good job of sharing, but they don't do a good job of receiving because the immediate notion of when we talk about student debt and we talk about student borrowing is, oh, we have somebody who wants to get a degree in African American dance studies, taking out all student loans and getting to knowing they couldn't get a job with it, and they just took all the money and they need to repay it. No, and that's not always the case. It legitimately is. Unless you went to an MIT or somewhere like that, legitimately all of those public or even some of the private education post-secondary institutions, they are going to make you take classes that will have no bearing on your career.
Yep. And I wonder, I don't even know how you go about looking into how they come up with that or why they do it, or because credit again should be a credit. It shouldn't be what you get 4 credits for in one state shouldn't be 2 or 3 in another state. They need to figure out how to, I don't even know what that looks like, how to make those equal. Because I'm telling you, I wasted a lot of time and a lot of money on those things. And when that overpayment thing happened, it's not like I went and wasted the money and started buying up stuff. I bought stuff for school. And that's what I was trying to explain. I'm like, wait a minute. I bought stuff for my classes, and now you're telling me I owe you money back. Like, this isn't a monopoly where there's a bank error that's not in your favor. I'm like, what are we doing here? This doesn't make any sense. So yeah, I would venture to say that's probably half. The other half is people who take courses to go into fields that just have no money at the end of those degrees, and you end up not making enough to even be able to afford to pay back those loans. But I still think there's a lot of people who are going through stuff that either they know that it's happening, like myself, or there's people who go through it, they don't even know that it's happening to them. They're just getting ripped off.
Yeah, and I guess this, the thing is to find a balance between the two. And salute to DOGE for finding all this wasteful spending that's happening, but maybe we no, hey, look, G will. Some people
There are
use
people who do.
their refunds for that.
Yeah, there are people who will just blow their money, and you'll see them coming with all these new clothes, and you're like, dude. And because I was older than everyone, because of what I went through, I saw it. And there's people who you're paying to go to school. You took out a loan. These are younger kids, and they're not showing up for class. I'm like, what are you doing? Like,
but see,
you understand why we're here? But they were all younger. They just didn't want. They didn't even want to be there. Sorry, go ahead.
But see, to me, that is the government's fault, and that's a failure of the government, because how can you give somebody a blank check who never had a checking account and say, here, get all this money and do what you want to do with it, and then it's so much red tape with those loans. Like I said, some people can get forgiveness for them. Some people can't get forgiveness for them. You have to go through all this long, arduous process to apply for forgiveness if you get it. All these different things. It should be such a simple, it should be such a simple process that the government complicates, just like taxes. It should be a simple process for taxes, but they complicated it to such a degree. And I know Donald Trump wanted to try to simplify it in his first term, and what did he get? He got pushback for that. And same thing now.
Yeah.
Everybody should say we need to cut waste in the government anyways. So why do the Democrats have such a problem when we're sitting up here paying for Sesame Street in Saudi Arabia?
Tens of millions of dollars. What's going on, Vince? So,
What's up,
you
y'all?
went through one of these types of things.
Yeah, hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, I was just getting into it here, man. I'm still on my lunch break, but I was just tuning in. But y'all was saying some good things about these student loans and things like that. Y'all Mel just made a good point. When I was in college, man, it was a lot. I'm talking about a lot of kids that had never had a checking account, wasn't even signed up with a bank, and they were getting these checks. Man, these refund checks was like $9,000, $10,000,
Yeah.
money they had never seen. And they was like, "Well, how am I gonna cash it? I can't go cash it." Well, you gotta go get a bank account. So they go to the Chase Bank in Ruston. They go get a bank account, put it in there. Then you got the students that'll get the check, buy a car. You had a lot of the girls would drop out after getting like their first refund check. I remember my freshman year. Crazy, man. I remember one girl, she was from Atlanta, man. And she was very intelligent, very smart, but she got that first refund check. I think she bought her like a Camaro or something. And then next thing you know, man, she dropped out. And I was just like, what in the world? I was like, these refunds got everybody going crazy, man.
The worst part about all of that is that's also when they start getting them credit card things in the mail. Hey, sign up for me. You don't have to pay us back for this amount of time. And it's like, so now you got this, thousands of dollars in cash, and you got these credit cards saying, here, you can take this and you can spend up to this amount. And I really do think it piled on to a horrible situation, especially in the Black community.
But you can't expect, and that's what I'm saying. So when these people are coming around saying, "Oh, people need to repay their debts, and people need to repay their debts, and repay your money," and I'm thinking like, I've seen people who went to school to register for classes. Once they got their refund, like to your point, they withdrew when they left. And so now these people are on docket. So now you're asking folks to repay money for a degree that they didn't even earn. So why are you giving money to people for degrees that they didn't even earn? That money should have even gone. It should have been a promise to the school that, hey, once they get their degree, boom, we'll give you the money, and then they'll have to repay it or something of that nature.
That's actually a really good idea.
Yeah, the federal government failed in how they rolled it out because the schools were telling people, you need money to live on. Here, don't just take out the $3,000, $4,000 you need for your 9 credit hours. Take out the $12,000 so you can help pay your light bill, or you can go buy that Camaro, or things of that nature. I'm telling you, that's what they were doing.
That's crazy.
It's criminal. That is not crazy. It's criminal.
Yeah, man, they were doing that. And then I remember students would take like 15, 16 hours just so they can get a bigger refund check. And then as soon as they would get their refund check, they would go to
They
the
dropped 2
website.
classes.
Yep, that's it right
Wow.
there. And I was just like, bro, what was the point of that? Like, why do that?
So then how did I get an overpayment and have to sit out for 2-3 years? They asked for that money back right away. I was like,
like that, Speaks.
What's that?
That's what I was saying when you were saying that. I was like, well, dang, that's crazy, because I remember kids doing that at my school, and they didn't have to, like, they would put them on like a type of probation where they couldn't get student loans for like a year or something if they did that. And a lot of kids started figuring out, oh, I ain't doing it no more. You know what I'm saying? They start dropping the hours down from 15 to 16 to like 9 or 6 hours or something like that.
So they're just doing what the system lets you do. And also, I think what happened with me was they're the ones who dropped the class. It wasn't me who dropped the class. So they knew, okay, everyone in this class needs to get called because we're not getting our money. So that's probably what it was.
But man, this is a good little discussion y'all having. Let me get off here and let y'all get back to you. Y'all going pretty good right now. I got like 10 more minutes and I got to get back to these kids. But y'all have a blessed day.
Thank you. You too, man.
Keep mentoring.
So it had to be why. So now that makes a little bit more sense. That does make sense because they knew everyone in this class needs to be called because we're not going to get our money and we need to get recouped. That makes perfect sense.
And see, like, to me, to solve this issue about student debt, because since we're talking about recouping money and finding money now, what do you say? They bank on us, mismanage our money. No, Gw. That's exactly what they did. That's exactly what they did. What the federal government actually ended up doing was they created a debtors class with these student loans. They didn't cap it and say, okay, well, you can literally take out hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars in student debt. So yeah, they have created they've created a master's debtors class in the sense that they don't care if you're in your 50s, 60s, 70s till you die, you're gonna owe the government. Their job, I hope it wasn't intentional, but that's what they ended up creating. To me, a solution for this would be to put a pause on student borrowing right now this year and say, okay, we're going to forgive, or we're going to use the DOGE money to uh, I guess, eradicate some of the student debt, or lower it or cap it to 20,000, for anybody who had over 20,000, something of that nature. Take the loss that you got and then say, going forward, when anybody from 2025 who's borrowing for student loans, this is the guideline, and this is how much you can, up to how much you can take out and how much you're going to get back, and you cannot use it for anything except books and fees and things of that nature. In my opinion, that's what I think should happen.
That makes sense. And there's no other aspect in life where you're allowed to just keep borrowing into six figures without being able to show that you can pay it back. I mean, we went through that during the housing bubble, and it happened then also. But for the most part, you can't just keep borrowing like that. What's going on, G? Will?
What's going on, y'all?
Hey, G. Will.
Hey, what's going on, Mel? So that's just how it's planned. So America has a whole lot of debt, right? Which keeps us thinking, okay, well, they're going to give me the money, I'm going to use the money, and then I'm going to struggle to pay the money back. And with student loans, when's a better time than to get a young, impressionable person locked up in debt for the rest of their life? I mean, you met my little brother out there in Houston. So he's a millionaire, but he's like, man, I'm gonna pay this $20 a month on these loans, these student loans for the rest of my life. And he said, I'll die with the debt. He's like, I don't care. He's like, they're gonna get this little $20 a month, and I'm gonna go and enjoy my life. They ain't gonna have me broke out here. So he literally pays $20 a month towards his student loans, and lives his life the way he wants to. He's like, I've never missed a payment. And he's like, I fought for my country. He's like, and they wouldn't forgive my student loans, me fighting for my country, going to war. He's like, so yeah, they get this $20 a month, and that's what they're gonna get.
And G. Will, here's the thing, and it's not, and people think, oh, well, they got loan forgiveness. That is a process, and
Right.
yeah, they will deny you for so many other things, like just me going through it. It is such an arduous process, and then when you call somebody to confirm about it and talk about it, you hear babies crying in the back because they sitting at home, and they're not in the call center, or it might be somebody who speaks with a heavy accent.
That's the biggest one, yeah.
So it's like, this is what, yeah. So
Yeah, he just and when he said that to me, I was like, because in my mind, I was like, you can afford to pay it back. Why don't you just pay it back? He's like, man, he's like, all the stuff I done went through for this country, all the stuff that this country does crazy. He's like, they gonna get this $20 a month and be happy about it. He's like, I'm gonna go about my life. He's like, and when I die, if I'm still paying $20 a month, that debt gonna die with me.
yeah, because I don't think that debt can be passed down to
No,
family
yet.
members.
they cannot.
Not
Yeah.
yet. I'm sure they're working on it though.
Yeah, so him and my little sister, same thing. My little sister, she's dang near a millionaire. She don't play either. She's like, yeah, no, I'm gonna pay this $20 a month, and that's what they gonna get from me.
That's interesting.
Both, both.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say both of them Prairie View graduates, and both of them are extremely high earners.
And you know what? I bet you, if you looked at all of the if you compared the debt by colleges, I would bet my ass that HBCUs are ranked up there at the highest.
Man,
because one of the biggest problems with HBCUs has been their treasury boards and how the money's spent and how the money where the money goes. You speaks, you laughing because you know I'm telling you laughing. Y'all don't laugh at because you know I'm telling the truth. I'm about to tell
Yes,
the truth on
because we
this.
got two daughters that went to HBCU, so that's
All
why
three of them
all
did.
three, all three of them did. Yeah, I just thought about all three of them did.
And you still look, and you
Number
still
two.
don't know. And look, you still don't know where your money went because you
No,
don't
here's the
see it in that
funniest part.
school.
When you said that, why I'm laughing is at Prairie View. I don't have to say any names or years, but the person we had a contact who was helping with grants, and he ended up, I think, going to prison. I don't know if he went to prison, but whatever he was doing, he was getting my daughters much larger grants than they would have gotten, which obviously lowered the loans and helped tremendously. But there's definitely some funky stuff going on in the upper echelons of APC.
No, look, Deion Sanders said it best. Deion Sanders said the reason why he left Jackson State, and a lot of people don't understand why.
Something's wrong.
Is
Something's wrong.
So my growing up, like the reason why I put my comment in there about us never being taught how to manage our money is I tell everybody my mom taught me how to rob Peter to pay Paul. She went to the grocery store to write a check to cover a bad check to cover another bad check before her paycheck covered them all, and then we didn't have no money again. The cycle began over and over again. So that's how my single black mom had to raise us to make sure that we ate on a daily basis. And it's sad, but typically back in the day, I don't know about everybody now, but because I'm different with my children, I actually show them money coming in, money going out, where it's going, how to invest a little bit, and to try to have their money work for them while they're sleeping. Stuff that I was never taught when I was a kid. So that's why I said we have to break the cycle now of what we went through when we were kids, because if we don't, it's going to continue to be like this. The student loan people are going to be sitting right at the college, looking for all the kids, but especially looking for us. Oh, there's one right there. We're going to give them a couple credit cards and we're going to give them some money, and they're going to mess it up, and they're going to owe us for the rest of their life.
Yeah, them credit cards, that's like a tiger hunting. They
Yeah.
really it's like they can't wait to send them credit card paperwork out.
Can't wait. Cannot wait.
Something I would encourage people to do, what we did with the girls is, I want to say when they were 12, maybe 11. We got checking accounts. You can go in with them and get them checking accounts.
Mm-hmm.
And then anytime they need anything, you put it in there. And now they learn. You see the light bulb go on when it comes to finance. It's like, oh wait, whoa, I don't have any more money that fast. And while you're doing that, you can monitor what's going on in their accounts. And I think that really, really helped them at an early age understand money and how fast it can go, and that it just doesn't pop up out of nowhere. The younger, the better. I don't know what the age limit is.
I think the first time we were able to get my son his was I think he was 12. He has two bank accounts. He has his Chase account that, because you had to wait till you were 12. They were the only bank that would give him one. And then we have his USAA account. Now the USAA account, the best part about that one is that for every $1,000 you have in the account, it's earning interest, and that's on a checking account, not on your like a savings account. It's earning interest on a checking account. So he has access to his Chase account, but he does not have access to his USAA account, because we keep money in there. And when he needs something, we'll move it over to his Chase account.
That's what we always did. But like I said, as soon as they hit that age and they have their own little debit card, the light bulb goes off, and you can see that they start understanding money more, and
right.
Utilizing how to save is the biggest one. Because they were some funny stories when they were at college and they were on campus, and they're like, "Why didn't you just call? I didn't want to have to call to ask for money." It's really funny. It's really cool, and you can see the maturity happen in real time. So I would encourage everyone to do that.
Yeah. I told a conversation I had with your oldest um, when she graduated from Howard. I told her, I said, look, Uncle Sam, you single. Ain't nobody, you don't have no family, you don't own nothing. You're gonna have to figure out a way to save your money to where you're not getting taxed on that money right now. And she was like, huh? I was like, listen, call me, we gonna talk. Because I wanted to make sure that the money stayed in her pocket rather than Uncle Sam just kill her tax wise because of the tax bracket she was going to end up in.
Man, end up in, and then the next one, and then the next one.
Right, exactly.
But
hey, got a question on a side note. Is Vivek Ramaswamy running for governor or something?
Yes, he is. Ohio. He's gonna win. He's gonna win.
You know what? How strategic is that? I'm telling you,
genius.
It is genius. So everybody's like, "Oh, look, Trump didn't even want him on in his cabinet. Oh, he didn't want Byron Donalds in his cabinet. Look at that, man. These dudes already had this thing figured out in October.
They probably knew before they started endorsing him because Elon was the first one to hit Vivek up and say, "I endorse." So they stepped away. They knew what they were going to do, and I'm pretty sure Elon and Trump knew exactly what they were going to do because there was really no scandals or any reason why they didn't get what they were signed up for. So yeah, Byron didn't get in. He didn't get a seat. I'm sure he turned him down. And same with Vivek. He was supposed to be in DOGE, and I'm sure he's like, you know what? I'm about to start running pretty soon.
So it didn't serve a point for Don, because I know Donald's. They consider him as as a possible vice president. It really didn't serve a purpose for him to do that because he wasn't in a swing state. Florida was a swing state back in 2016, maybe. It's red now. It's not swing.
It may have been before 2016, maybe 2016.
I think Obama carried it in 2012.
He was in
no, it was a toss, but it was a toss up with Hillary Clinton.
Really?
Yeah, because remember, all the black folks said they weren't going to come down here until they passed that Trayvon Martin legislation, and then they ended up showing up down here for the campaign for Hillary Clinton. So yeah, so but Ohio was still somewhat of a toss up, so that's why you got JD Vance, and now it makes sense why Ramaswamy would be there too.
It's a perfect segue, and he's essentially been running through this whole election season because he really wasn't out and about the season before. It's perfect. He was running and Byron was running. They were just doing it on behalf of someone else. Now everyone knows their positions. Everyone knows who they are. It's really smart. Really smart.
Well, and this is going to be a big thing where Democrats are going to show their cards because here we have Byron Donalds running for governor in Florida. He can make history. He can be the trailblazer. He can be the first black governor of the state of Florida, a former Jim Crow state. Are we going to celebrate him, or are we going to demagogue him the way Nikki Fried did in that newspaper article? We have Winsome Sears, an immigrant woman running for governor in the state of Virginia who happens to be black. Are we going to celebrate this black woman and stand behind her, or are we going to demagogue her? And now we got an Indian American running in Ohio. Oh, what a time to be alive.
It's great. Which is why it always drove me crazy that DeSantis tried to jump in the presidential. I didn't understand it. It drove me insane. I'm like, why is he doing this right now? But that's a whole different conversation.
Mel, you got me over here cracking up laughing. I'm sneezing. I got a catering job tomorrow, so I had to go on mute because I kept sneezing because I ran out of my rub, so I had to make some more. And peppers was killing me, but you got me over here cracking up right now because you know that the one thing about Democrats is they don't care that they are the left. They don't care that they are what's the word I'm looking for, are disingenuous in everything, because they'll make an excuse about it when they don't support them. No, you're supposed to support the black person as long as they are on the left. or support the minority as long as they're on the left. But if they are a minority or a LGBTQ person or whatever that is on the right, oh no, they hate themselves.
They're gonna run. They're gonna run the Larry
She
Elder
will.
strategy.
I just can't wait to go back to Virginia and see those aunties and cousins. And when I start talking about Winsome Sears, and they say, and they talk about something, why would you who would vote for her? And I look at them, I'll be like, aren't y'all the same people talking about we need to support black women when Kamala
Right,
was running?
right.
You know, so now we ain't supporting the black woman.
Oh, did you speaking of her, Kamala?
Yeah.
Did you guys see her? Oh man, she went to visit. I think it was California.
Yes.
Oh, so bad. Did you see that,
Yeah.
Mel?
You talking about when she was like talking to the cast of a play or something, and
She was
she was
speaking
drunk.
to the media. She was speaking to the media about the fires, and she's like, "You could smell it." It's like, oh my god, it's vintage. It's her. It's who she is.
Are you saying? Wait, hold on, bro. Are you
She
saying you could smell the fire or you could
the
smell the
smoke or
alcohol
whatever.
on her?
No, well, probably could smell both.
Either one.
Either one. But it was so bad. It was so crazy. It was that woman.
You know her nickname was Kalua Kamala.
Hold on, let me see if I can
I'm
find
dying.
it. So
So the best way to watch that is lefties losing it, because that mess. I'm sorry, they had me cracking up every time.
so you know what I'm talking about when she was speaking on the fires?
Yep, I know. I live in California, of course I know.
Oh, yeah, that's true. So she's just so. I can't believe anyone thought that she was even partially capable. Like, look at this. You gotta see this. It's only 35 seconds. This woman.
You're now seeing it up close.
It's not only seeing it, Alex, you can smell it. You can feel it, right? So it's seeing it with our eyes, and many people have seen it. You all are covering it. But to literally be on the ground here, you can smell the smoke that was here. You can feel the toxicity, frankly, of the environment. You can feel the energy of all of the folks who are still here on the ground.
She's so bad.
She looked like the drunk. She looked like the drunk. She looked like the drunk that walked up to the news crew to ask them what's going on.
Like, why wouldn't you be able to smell it? It was on fire for like 3-4 weeks.
What's that? What's that? Hold on. What's that Puerto Rican drink? What's that Puerto Rican drink? Is it called coquino or coquino? I think it's called coquino. Yeah, I believe it's called coquino. Either way, I'm gonna start calling it coquino Kamala. So.
Oh, that's funny.
You can smell it. Yeah, lady, it was on fire. She's running for governor. That's why she's getting out there. She's so.
Yeah, that's gonna be funny, because I want to see if people actually will vote for her as the governor, to be the governor here.
You know you're gonna be stuck with her.
Oh man, I
don't think so.
But I don't think so either.
Really?
I don't think it goes back to what I was saying before. Number one, there's a large Hispanic population.
Mm-hmm.
There's a large Hispanic population in California. Yes, but then there's also a large Asian population, and then also I can't see them backing her or supporting her. If you notice the trend of the Democrat Party, as much diversity as they claim to be, they went back to the white man.
Yep.
In all their leadership roles and all their governance in terms of being the face of their party, they went right back to that. So
and in women's sports.
So this is what I'm going to tell you.
I can't comment on that.
So this is what I'm going to tell you is, so if she runs for governor, when she runs for governor, there's going to be other Democratic candidates that are going to run for governor in California. They're going to have other choices. The problem that she's going to run into here, that a lot of people here are still trying to figure out how you do, is how you lost $2 billion. You can't manage that. And you know, the other the candidates are going to bring that up.
They have.
So you can't manage that, but you want to manage one of the biggest economies in the world? No.
I disagree with you 1,000%.
Really?
Yeah, because you got to understand something. These are the same people, and I'm talking about that party as a whole, and the main figures in that party who don't give a damn about all this money that DOGE is uncovering and finding. They're actually trying to justify and defend that that they're trying to justify and defend Saudi Arabia getting Sesame Street for all things. I don't think Democrats give a damn about. I don't think the far left gives a damn about her mismanaging $2 billion. I really don't.
I don't know, man.
I believe the people. I believe the people of California, because California is bad right now as far as financially. I believe the people in California, if they're shown a better Democratic choice, she won't get voted for, and that's all it is. Is they just need to be shown a better option to vote Democrat, because they're not going to vote for a Republican. And if they do, I'm gonna be surprised, because Schwarzenegger was the last person to run for governor as a Republican here and win.
He wasn't really one either.
Right, he wasn't one either. He's Democrat too. But so Brown, you could say Brown, but I think Brown was a closet Democrat. So
oh no, you talking about Jerry Brown? Jerry Brown was he was a Democrat.
Okay, I thought he was Republican. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Outspoken Democrat.
Yeah. So. Well, so they're going to vote for a Democrat. It just might not be her, because people out here, man, I deal with a lot of people on a daily basis. I talk to a lot of people, and most of the people that I talk to didn't vote for her. But then you get those pockets of people that really, really dislike Elon and dislike Trump. And it's not even about politics anymore. They just don't like the person because the news told them that they shouldn't like him.
Well, I'm gonna tell you who California might go for, and Speaks. No, I think I'm about 50-50 or 1 for 2 in my predictions. I guarantee you it will be an actor who's going to run for governor, and it might be George Clooney.
Oh Lord.
Or it might be, don't shake your head, because look, I promise you, it might be George Clooney, or it's going to be somebody younger who can repeat the talking points, but have the look factor that they can gravitate behind, because they might be thinking about a run for the White House.
I got to move.
I think it's Jon Stewart. I think Jon Stewart's the guy. He's been their voice for a long time now, since he had the other show. I think Jon Stewart's going to be their guy. I don't think Clooney. He did distance himself from her, though. He did do that recently. But let's see. So California took 5 weeks to count their votes this last election. I'm trying to see why, if it had anything to do with any pushback from Republicans, but it doesn't look like that has anything.
It took 5 weeks because they couldn't believe how many votes Trump got. That's why it took so long. They were like, recount that again.
That's what I was trying to look at, to see if there was any Republicans who got more than normal votes, but I can't tell.
Yeah. Their problem was is that registered Democrats and registered independents voted for Trump. And that's where their biggest problem was, and that's why it took them so long, because they were in disbelief and they didn't want to let those numbers out.
It was 5 weeks.
Yeah, they didn't want to let those numbers out. Yeah.
California is the tech capital of the country. They couldn't figure out how to count votes.
They figured it out. They just was in disbelief. They was like, we can't believe these people voted for this man like this.
I need to see how many votes he got there, because there had to be a reason for it, because I know he kept saying it. He was like, I got more votes in California than any Republican. You know how he is. He just throws it out there. But he was like, that's why they're still counting. And I'm looking at him like, it is late December. Why are they still counting? So,
all right, you two, I got a meeting right now, so I'm going to drop down, and I'm going to catch the rest of this later on today. Y'all have a good one.
Actually, if you don't have anything, I'm pretty much done with the topic. I appreciate you both for coming up. Mel, you got anything else?
Nah, man. Support reparations 2025. Responsible and reasonable. Don't give out them cash checks to those people in the hood. Don't worry.
All right, man. I appreciate you for coming up as well.
All right. I'm gonna go troll in the chat. So,
oh jeez, I'll get my I'll get the what you call it ready, the axe. Kate Soprano, thank you. G. Will, thank you guys for coming here. Miss Phoenix Rising, Vince, thank you, sir, for coming up. Oliver Green Apartments, Catcher, Matta Jagger, Mike Levin, thank you. Mel Dove, of course, appreciate you, sir. Uncle L, Roll Rich, thank you guys for stopping by. Appreciate you all. Evo, the artist, thank you. Miss Highly Favored, obviously, thank you. But yeah, so I think hopefully everyone walked away fully understanding that this is not just a stimulus check that we're going to be getting. It's nothing like the stimulus checks, actually. It's actually our money, and we should be getting some back, but don't expect it anytime soon, and don't expect $5,000. I believe we're being set up for disappointment. They will do anything to try and make Trump look bad, but it's still something that we'd be getting back, and I'm good with it. I actually prefer this over regular reparations, and I actually do like the idea of educational reparations, as that's what we talked about mostly today. Let's see. I'm gonna pull that video back up. I already closed it out. Crap. But support Graham. I think that's how he says his name. Graham Stefan. Really good content creator. Again, very smart guy. Became a millionaire in his 20s. That's really impressive. His channel is very informative. I subscribed. Obviously, like that video. Share this, because I think there's a lot of people going around getting bad information, and again, I don't want expectations to be too high. With that said, I came in with Gangstar. I think I played Say Your Prayers and Code of the Streets, and we're going to leave with Now You're Mine. Like, subscribe, share. Follow me on Rumble. If you're on Rumble, follow me on YouTube. Everybody who doesn't have Rumble, I'm telling you, you guys need to get on Rumble if you're a content creator. There's no reason not to do it. Let me put that in here one more time. I think I still have the links here. Yep, I do. Let's see. That is my Rumble. No, that's not going to share the same way. Let me do it the old-fashioned way. Copy the link. Let's see. Rumble. Subscribe to my Rumble channel. I believe Karen the Black is now on Rumble. I don't have it off. I didn't save it, but he's on Rumble, so you should be able to search. I believe he uses the same name on there, so follow him on Rumble as well. This is my YouTube channel. If you're on YouTube, or if you're on Rumble, follow me on YouTube. Subscribe, share there also, and my X page. If you would like to provide a fresh wind, and support the channel, we're doing cool things. I actually have a whole new setup. I just haven't set it up yet. Wife and I have decided to change the angle behind me, and we have a cool new setup that's going to be happening very soon. Support channel on CashApp. Other than that, thank you guys again. Appreciate you all. And make sure I'm not ignoring anybody. I think I got everybody. We are good.